Hello, boys and girls. It's Aunty Mimmi here. Today, I've got a really fun book for us to read. It's called Rosy Rags. So sit back, get comfortable, and let's begin. Hush a while. I want to tell you a very special story. Very special indeed. It begins with two sisters, Emma and little Suzy. They were the best of friends and were always laughing and happily, especially when they were with their baby brother, Alex. Now, Emma, being the eldest, used to help their mother look after the two younger ones. But one day she noticed that Suzy did not look very well and that her usual happy smile had disappeared and her cheeks were pale. Her mother had noticed it too and asked the doctor to come and see her. He examined Suzy for a long time. Well, I really can't tell what's wrong with her. I think what we'll do is send her to hospital and see if we can bring back her smile and put some roses back in her cheeks. Then he turned to Emma and said very kindly, I'm afraid that only your mum and dad will be able to go with Suzy, my dear, until we know what's wrong with her. We don't want you to risk getting ill as well, do we? And so, leaving Emma to look after baby Alex, they drove off to the hospital. When the door closed behind them, Emma felt very sad indeed. And she said to herself, I must help make Suzy smile again. I know, I'll make her a special rosy dress. That should bring the roses back to her cheeks. So, leaving baby Alex to play, she hunted all over the house for the right sort of material and finally found some leftover from some rosy-coloured curtains that her mother had made. Then, using the scissors to cut up the cloth and a great big needle and thread, she made a lovely rosy dress. When Mum and Dad came back from the hospital, she showed it to them. Her mother smiled gently. Oh, Emma, my dear, it's a beautiful dress, and you've done your best, but it's much too small for Suzy to wear. And Dad said kindly, it really is very pretty, but I think it would only fit a doll. This made Emma ever so sad. In fact, she very nearly cried. Then she said, well, I'm going to make Suzy smile. I know, I'll make a doll of the right size to fit this dress. So, once again, she looked all over the house for some cloth to make the doll. She found some pink stuff for the face, legs and arms, and some nice red yarn for the hair. Then she made some knickers, a petticoat, a pair of black shoes and white socks, and a very pretty frilly white lace apron. And on the face, she sewed two great big round eyes and a lovely bright wide smile. Then, crossing her fingers, she said to herself, now we'll see if the dress will fit. And it did, perfectly. That should put a smile back on Suzy's face, said Emma, looking at the doll very fondly. Oh, Rosy doll, you really do look wonderful in that rosy dress. I'm going to call you Rosy Rags. And your task will be to help Suzy to smile and put the roses back in her cheeks. Then she made some rosy bows for Rosy Rags' hair, but noticed that there were still two things missing: a heart and a nose. She looked everywhere for some more cloth, but could only find some golden fabric. So she said to herself, The gold won't make a very good nose, but a heart of gold, oh yes, that would be perfect. So she just started very carefully to cut out a nice golden heart when her mother came in. I'm afraid it's time for me to go to the hospital, Emma. Oh, I did want Suzy to have rosy rags, I know. I'll just glue the heart of gold onto Rosy's chest. But in a hurry, she let the golden heart fall. It landed on Rosy's dress and stuck on her sleeve. And then something magical happened. Emma could not believe her ears when a small voice said, I don't need a nose, Emma. My golden heart is enough for me. And Emma's eyes opened wide in disbelief as even more magic happened. Rosy Rags slowly stood up and gradually became alive, like a flower opening up to the sky. I can smile because I have a mouth. I can sing, let my voice ring out. I can see, and it's clear to see, that you and I good friends must be. I have arms to give a great big hug, and a heart that's filled with love. So to show the world how much I care, upon my sleeve my heart I'll wear. Have a heart of gold, with a heart of gold. All the world will be a better place, with love for everyone, creed and race. While Rosy Rags was singing, she cut out a golden heart from the leftover cloth. She gave Emma a great big hug and stuck the gold heart on the sleeve of Emma's dress. Then she said, Emma, I was sent from high above to help all the children with hearts of love. And because you have a loving heart, little Suzy is where I'll start. But when I help her to get well, you must promise not to tell any grown-ups what I've done, or that I'm alive and can walk and run. Grown-ups would never understand. Promise me, give me your hand. Then Emma and Rosy Rags shook each other's hand, and Emma promised. Just then her mother came back into the room, and when she saw Rosy Rags, she exclaimed, Emma, what a wonderful, wonderful doll. Suzy will be pleased. Oh, and I do like the golden heart upon her sleeve. Then she picked up Rosy, and just as she was going out the room, she smiled at Emma. You know, my dear, your doll really is delightful. With those great big eyes and that huge friendly smile, she looks almost real, as if she was alive. And Rosy winked at Emma as Emma waved goodbye, which shows that if you really try, you can do almost anything. At the hospital, Mum found Suzy sound asleep, so she gently placed Rosy beside her and crept silently out of the room. Rosy cuddled up close to Suzy and gave her a long, big hug. When Suzy woke up, she found Rosy gently rubbing her cheeks, and it made her feel safe and warm and happy. You can smile because you have a mouth. You can sing, let your voice ring out. You can see, and it's clear to see, that everyone good friends must be. You have arms to give a great big hug, and a heart that's filled with love. So, to show the world how much I care, upon my sleeve my heart I wear. Have a heart of gold. With a heart of gold, all the love you give along the way, you will receive tenfold one day. Rosie whispered, Suzy, my darling, I'll find you a golden heart very soon. And Suzy snuggled back with a contented smile. Not long afterwards, the doctor came in and sat beside Suzy's bed. Suzy, you look so much better. It's lovely to see you smile, and even laughing, and your cheeks are rosy red too. You know, I do believe there's been a miracle here today. Then he left Rosie and Suzy, and they laughed and played together until Rosie said, Hush a moment, Suzy. She could just hear the doctor talking quietly in the next room. Well, our big problem is that this hospital is too small. We need more space, more equipment, and more money. That's the only way we will be able to help more children here. Rosie was so intent on trying to hear the doctor that she climbed onto the windowsill where she could hear better. Just at that moment, Mrs. Mop came into the room to do the cleaning. Now, Mrs. Mop is very nice indeed, but not only does she clean everything twice, but she says everything twice. She looked at Suzy and said, Oh, Suzy, Suzy, you look better. I shall clean twice under your bed, because you look so well. And she flopped the mop about under Suzy's bed. But when she was doing it again for the second time, the mop handle slipped out of her hand and hit Rosie on the head, and she fell right out of the window. But she didn't fall very far, because a strong wind blew up and took her away up into the sky, just as if she was flying. Away she blew, further and further and further. Mr. Wind, please take me back, please. But Mr. Wind said, Sorry, I'm only blowing north today, but I will lower you down onto that flat ground over there, and you will have to find your own way back. By the time she landed, it was getting dark, but she could just see a large building with a notice on it, which said, Fashions by Associated Clothing Company. Rosie carefully opened a window. She jumped in and landed in a huge, soft pile of golden cloth. She was a little bit frightened. Then she found a shiny pair of scissors. So she cut out the shape of a heart from the golden cloth. Holding the heart, she clambered out. And then, well, she nearly fainted with fright. 2 great big round eyes were staring at her, and she heard a frightening noise. Grr, grr, grr. She saw a huge mouth with even bigger teeth, and she was so scared her knees started to knock. Just as the mouth came close and wide open as if to bite her, she slapped the heart of gold beneath it and shut her eyes really tight. Then a voice said, Sorry to scare you, little doll. My name is Patch. Rosie opened her eyes and saw a great big friendly black dog. It was panting with pleasure and gave her a really sloppy wet kiss with its long tongue. Then it licked her on the head and said, Just doing my job, keeping everybody out, but you can be my friend. I'd like that, Rosie sighed with relief, and then looked at the pile of golden cloth. If my friend you wish to be, bring me a light so I can see. Using all this cloth, I've planned to make gold hearts for all the land. Patch rushed around and yelped with pleasure, and found a light. Woof, woof. And he and Rosie stayed up all night and made a pile of golden hearts. When the sun came up, Rosie stacked all the hearts in her apron, but they started to run out of the sides onto the floor. "Oh, help me, Patch, what can I do?" she cried in despair. "How can I carry them?" "We could make a glad rag bag," Patch replied. "Brilliant!" exclaimed Rosie. So they worked together using Patch's nose to push the needle, and in no time the glad rag bag was finished, and they filled it up with hearts of gold. Then Rosie said, "There's one more thing I need to know, and that's the direction I should go. Let's go on the roof outside, and maybe we can decide." But all they found there was a great big bluebird, crying and sobbing. Patch asked, "Why are you crying, Bluebird?" The bird stopped the noise and said, "Because I'm a bluebird. I just fly around and around in an aimless way, and I can't find out why. That's why I'm a bluebird." Then it started to cry again. Then Rosie reached into her bag, took out a gold heart, and tagged it to the bird's wing. Immediately, the bird stopped crying and started to sing, and even more strange, its colour changed from blue to blue with a rosy hue. "Thank you very much," twittered the bird. "Is there anything I can do to repay you?" "Oh, yes, please. Could you take me to the hospital?" "With pleasure," the rosy bluebird twittered. "Just jump on my back." So Patch helped Rosie onto the bird's back, and they promised each other they would meet again soon. The rosy bluebird flapped its wings and soared into the sky. There were dark clouds above them, and it started to rain, but soon they were over the hospital, and Rosie could see people below rushing around. They were all wearing frowns, and nobody was smiling. Then she spotted Mum and Dad and Emma and Alex about to go inside. She jumped up and was so excited that she slipped off the rosy bluebird's back. She fell and she fell and she fell, down, down, down. "Oh, what can I do? I'm falling," she cried. And then the glad rag bag turned itself completely upside down, just like a parachute. Rosie held on very tightly and floated down gently and landed safely right into Emma's arms. All the hundreds and hundreds of golden hearts which had been in the bag had fallen out and drifted down to the ground. Emma held Rosie in her arms and whispered, "Where have you been? We've got wonderful news. Suzy is better, and we've come to collect her and take her home." When they met Suzy, Emma placed Rosie in her sister's arms, and they quietly hugged each other. And without anyone seeing, Rosie placed the last golden heart from the glad rag bag on little Suzy's sleeve. The family all held hands and prepared for the journey home. Dad glanced up into the sky. "Oh, look, the rain has stopped and the clouds are parting and the sun is beaming through like a big golden heart." Rosie winked again as Emma and the family waved goodbye to the doctor, and the doctor's face beamed with happiness. He could see all around him people with hearts of gold on their sleeves, which had fallen down from Rosie's glad rag bag. Then he knew that all these golden hearts would build a new hospital for children like Suzy. But he didn't know anything about Rosie because, you see, he was a grown-up and didn't know their secret. Well, that was a fun book, wasn't it, boys and girls? I hope you enjoyed it. As always, I want you to be kind to one another, look after one another, and try and have some fun every single day. Until next time, bye-bye.